Happy Tuesday, Success Bosses. This is Alicia with Level Up Score. I am so happy to be here today. I'm actually in Clearwater, Florida, so I'm running late. I know that I normally come on here at 12 noon, but there was an event going on and I needed to wait until they went back from break so that you could actually hear me. So hopefully this audio is okay. But I'm really excited for today's experience that I'd like to give you, and it's how I built sticky client experiences that tripled my retention rate. And I know all of us want to do that, right? Because if we're getting clients in our door, we want to retain them. And that's hopefully what I can provide you with some knowledge based on what I did and how that might work for you. So that's what this live will be about today. So again, happy Tuesday, Success Bosses. Today's top tip is one of the most important lessons I've learned over the last 2 decades of being in business, working with clients with credit, finances, and lending and client-based services, all of that. So today I'm breaking down how I build sticky client experiences that literally tripled my retention rate. And I hope to do that with you too. And as I've been doing, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I would like to show you. And see how I can bring that up real fast because I'm doing it all in a different way. Every week seems to be a new thing, new way. So bear with me just a second here as I bring that up. Right. New experiences, new places, right? Always a new challenge. All right. Hopefully you guys can see my screen now. I'm gonna see if I can get my presentation mode. I'm actually doing this through Canva. I don't know if anybody has done this through Canva before, but it is not my it's not my thing. I don't know how to do that. So give me just one second. Let me resize back to presentation mode. There we go. Oh, it's working. We're going to do this. Okay. So again, Alicia Alt with Level Up Score. I am the founder of Level Up Score. We're going to talk about how I built my sticky client experiences to triple my income. So again, thank you for being here on Tuesday's top tip. So when I say sticky, I don't mean gimmicky. Okay. I don't mean that I'm trying to just keep people on and give them a little bit of stuff just to keep them on longer. That is not what I'm talking about at all. If you're doing that, I advise you not to do that. You'll lose business really fast. And I don't mean texting clients every day. That's not sticky. They don't actually like that. And I don't mean over servicing or burning yourself out either. I mean experiences where clients stay longer, cancel less, ask fewer questions, trust the process that you're taking them through, and refer more people. That's what I mean when I say sticky. We're going to break it into 3 parts today, and each part is going to build on the last one. So please stick with me. So I'm going to break this up in 3 parts. So if you're listening to part 1 and later want to do part 2 or part 3, I'm going to break that up for you. If retention has ever felt unpredictable for you, this will change how you think about your business. I'm really excited to bring this content to you. So why clients actually leave, and it's not what you might think. Years ago, I had clients canceled, and on paper, I didn't see like that it was anything wrong with it. But when I asked why they were canceling, they said things that I'll never forget. And it really changed the way I do business. They would say stuff like, I just don't feel like I know what's going on. Have you guys heard that before? I just don't feel like I know what's going on. And then when I was able to get on the have a conversation with them when they're canceling and they're telling me that's the problem, and I'm talking to them about the process and how it works, oftentimes I retain that client right back. But think if I had not had that conversation and interviewed my clients to find out why they were canceling, I wouldn't know how to approach this and solve that problem. What they're really saying is, I don't feel safe in your process anymore. They don't understand. We do a lot of invisible work, and that's part of the problem. Clients don't cancel because results are slow. They actually cancel because clarity is missing. They don't understand the process. They don't know what you're doing. So I want to just start with that story is like, if you can interview your clients, a lot of times you're going to find out what the actual reason is for their cancellation. And oftentimes it's not that it was a lack of what you did, or you're not good at what you do. It's that they're not seeing it as transparent. So again, asking that question. So again, clients don't cancel because results are slow. They cancel because clarity is missing in the process. So let's look at the truth about retention. Most professionals think retention is about speed. They think if I could just get results faster, people would stay longer. That is not true. tell you that right now. I've seen clients stay on for months with my service with zero visible score improvements. I've seen people cancel even though they had huge score improvements. So the truth about retention is not that your process has to have a lot of speed or that you have to show improve these results. It's actually more of this the whole point of like being upfront and clear about your process and it not being invisible to them. When clients feel certain, they stay. When they feel confused, they leave. So you guys know that I do this a lot, but I'm going to talk to you about, looking at the idea of being a personal trainer, for instance, right? If you came to me as a personal trainer and you asked me to help you lose 10 pounds and you've seen me do it myself, and I say, I'm going to hand you the same process I did for myself. I know it works, and this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to be your accountability partner. I'm going to be your support person. Because you've seen that process work and I've laid out the process in front of you, you're going to feel more certain about the process, even if you're not necessarily seeing results right away. Because I went through the journey, I can probably tell you up front, you may not be seeing results right away. So keep that in mind as well as when you're considering this. Okay, so the invisible work problem. This is the real problem that I see with retention, especially in our jobs as credit professionals. We're reviewing reports. We're spending hours doing that. We're analyzing data. We're planning strategies. We're prioritizing their steps. But the client doesn't see any of that, right? That's something we do behind the scenes as a professional. Oftentimes, we don't even want the client to know how we're doing that because it's our proprietary information. But the client doesn't see that you're actually doing anything, right? And the invisible work creates dangerous internal questions that your consumers are having. Things like, did they forget about me? Right? Because you're doing all this work in the background. They don't know that you're actually working with their file, right? They don't know that. So did they forget about me? It's often a question. I've heard that question many times. Are they even working on anything? Is there any work being done? Am I wasting my money? Right? Because if we're working invisibly, they don't see our work and they're not seeing progress, especially if they're not seeing progress, and they're thinking, I'm wasting my money. This isn't working, right? Should I even keep going? Right? Is a question. And these questions will absolutely kill your retention. I don't know how many times I've talked to people and they say stuff like, I've been in business for X amount of years and I keep clients on for 30 days to 3 months and I have a hard time figuring out why. They get good results and they're still leaving. Again, it's the invisible work problem. So invisible work creates that visible doubt. And so that's what you want to solve for, right? Okay. There are three elements of a sticky client experience that I want to walk you through today. So the first experience that I want to walk you through is dedication. People don't need motivation, they need direction. So I want to think about the last time you personally stayed committed to something. Maybe it was fitness, maybe it was your financial goal, maybe it was a long process that required your patience. And I want you to ask yourself this, and a lot of you are probably going to pick fitness because that tends to be something we talk about a lot. But um, why didn't you quit? Why didn't you quit in that experience? That's how you're going to solve this problem of keeping your clients on and keeping them sticky, is asking yourself the same questions because you're a consumer as well. And I think we forget about that we are consumers. So if we look at our own self and how our behaviors happen, what do we do, our actions, what we think, we can uncover probably what the client's thinking. So why didn't you quit? Right? Most likely it wasn't because it was easy, right? So especially if it's a fitness goal and you didn't quit, most likely it wasn't because it was easy, right? So it's probably hard. It was because you knew what you were doing. You knew why you were doing it and where it was leading. And that's what a sticky experience looks like. So think about that for a second. If you know what you're doing, if you know why you're doing it, and you know where it's leading, then it's a lot easier to stay on, even if it's hard, even if it's a long process, right? But if we're unsure about the process, we're not sure if it's going to work, right? We don't understand the process. We don't know where it's leading. We don't know even what the next step is. Then, and we're not seeing progress, especially if we're not seeing progress, then we're probably going to lose motivation. We're not going to have the dedication to go the long haul. Okay. And so that is number one. You want to ask yourself what kept you going when it was hard or when the results were not visible, right? Okay. Element number one, a clear path. get to my next thing here. So clear path. A sticky experience always starts with a clear path, not a phone call, not a long explanation, a written plan. People need to see that clear path. Your real plan will answer these questions immediately for your clients. What's hurting me? What matters most? What happens first? What happens next? What does success look like? So if we can show our clients a detailed plan, just like if you came to me for personal training, right? And I said, here's your plan. This is what you're going to eat. This is when you're going to wake up. This is when you're going to work out. Like all the plan is all laid out for you. And we have a big why for that, right? We're going to be able to retain that client longer because they see the journey. They see the journey right in front of them. It's not invisible. When clients have a plan, they stop spiraling. A plan is emotional reassurance in written form. Okay, we're emotional beings. So it's emotional reassurance saying, hey, here's the plan. If we do these things, we're going to get to this goal. And if I trust that your plan is going to make that happen because I've seen you do it before, I've seen it in your own life, right? Then I'm going to be able to stay on even when it's hard, even when it's a long process. Element number 2 is visible progress. People don't need constant wins. They need visible movement. Progress doesn't always mean like it's a big change, right? And so I actually posted about this today that our lives are begging for consistency, right? And I think that is for our clients as well. If they can see that by making these certain movements, because you have a plan laid out for them, that they're going to get to their goal, then they're going to be more likely to stay dedicated to that and do some consistent actions towards getting to their goals. So sometimes progress is simply knowing what's being worked on, understanding why something didn't move yet, and seeing priorities shift, right? And when progress is documented and patience increases, progress doesn't mean you have to be fast. It just means you have to be visible, right? And so kind of think about that for yourself when we talk about visible progress, right? If I am working with you as a personal trainer, I like to use this because I think the analogy works really well because we all have probably struggled in this area in one shape or another, or went to a personal trainer. But if I'm going to a personal trainer and I'm getting weighed in every week or measurements every week, and I have milestones to hit in my fitness, maybe it's a lift, like I'm lifting heavier, that's going to show that visible progress that these consistent little movements that I make are actually developing into that big thing, right? It's not necessarily that a big change happens right away. All right, element number 3 is the direction towards a goal. And this is the part most people skip. And I see this time and time again with professionals in credit and finances, even with loan officers, right? We don't really hone in on what is the actual goal of our consumer. Sticky experiences always connect today's work to the future. Okay. Because if we don't connect today's work to the future and constantly reassure the client, constantly bring up the big why for them, we're oftentimes going to lose the client, especially when it gets hard, especially when it's a longer process, right? So we have to bring back up the home, the approval, the funding, the fresh start. Why are we really doing this work? Why are we okay to do the hard work? Why are we okay to do this for month after month after month, right? Why? What's the big why? And I encourage you to step into this a little bit deeper than the surface why. So maybe the surface why is the person comes to you and they want to buy a home. That's a surface why. Okay, great. That's a big why. It's a big goal. But why a new home? Right. And, I've told the story before, and some of you guys have heard this, but I had a client come to me and he said, my big why is that I want to be able to take my daughter into our first home and she have her own bedroom because he was feeling like a failure of a father. He was feeling like he was a failure of a husband and a failure of a man in general. Right. So because I knew that big why, as we're doing things and as it's hard and as we're not seeing the progress that we think we need to see, we always want the big jump in 24 hours, right? I can reassure him, say, hey, we're working towards your goal. I can't wait to see you walk in your house with your baby girl and open that bedroom door and say, what color do you want to paint your room? Right. And because I know what his big why is, I can then continuously on every update bring that big why up, show him how he's closer to that big why. Right. And this is so important. I think it's a very misstep and often a lot of industries and probably every industry, people don't connect it with a big why, not the surface why, but the big why. People will wait if they know where they're going. People will wait if they have a big why for where they're going and if you help remind them of that, right? I don't know how many times I've had clients in the industry as well as in the credit industry as well as in the loan industry that we go through a tough time and things just don't seem like it's going the person's way at all. Like it feels like it's completely the opposite of going in their way. And they're ready to throw their hands up and say, I'm just done with this, right? So done with this. And then we find out later that, we have this discussion about this big why and they go, I can do this, right? Because we sat down and we had that conversation. And I think so often we're not having those conversations with the client. And they need that, especially in the credit and financial space, right? It's not always easy. Certainly not always easy. And we're spending money. And if we're not seeing results and we forget that there's progress happening and we're not connecting that to the big why, it can kind of sometimes make people feel like, hey, this isn't even worth it, right? And I think we can all understand that if we put ourselves in the eyes of the consumer, because we all are consumers. So thinking about that. So now you know what creates a sticky client experience. How do you deliver this consistently without burnout? So let's just kind of put it in three different clear modes, right? So we have the plan, right? So number one, to create a sticky experience for a client, we need to have a detailed, clear plan, or you can call it the journey for the client. They need to know. But how can we make a really good journey for the client? Number one, we probably have gone through that experience ourselves, came up the other side. I talk about this a lot, where we were here and we wanted to get here and we figured out how to do it. And then as a professional, we took out all the hills and the mountains and the bumps and the bruises to make it a smoother experience and a faster experience for our consumer, right? So that's the plan, that's the journey. So we want to make sure that we have a clear plan. So that's number one. If we have that, that by itself is one of the most sticky things that you can do today. It's very, very easy. Number two is visible progress. So clients need to see that visible progress. They need to see an updated plan. Okay, what have we accomplished? Where are we at now? What is it? Do we need a shift? Is there a shift in what we need to do? Right? So visible progress is really important. This is not hey, your credit score went up 10 points. Well, what if it doesn't go up 10 points next month? Is that not progress? Did we not have progress? The answer almost always is yes, we did have progress, even if we don't see a score improvement. And so being able to visibly show that and not put all your stock into what that credit score looks like. Okay. We can have really high credit scores. And I show this on my demos with level up score where a person has a 750 credit score but can't get a conventional loan. Right. So we can have really high credit scores, doesn't mean we're going to get to our goal. So visible progress is how are we getting to the goal, the big why, right? And then that comes to the last one, direction towards a goal. Do we know what the big why is, the direction that the client wants to go in? Can we restate that constantly throughout our process with them? Help remind them, because sometimes they forget, especially when it gets hard, especially when it comes to the holidays, right? Especially when the process seems long. Connecting it and reconnecting it to their big why, not the surface why. We have to be really clear and we need to learn what the client's big why is, right? Okay. So the system I use to scale sticky experiences. So this is always my promise to you. You don't have to work harder to deliver really big, right? So there was a time in my entire business relied on me explaining everything. If I wasn't on a call, if I wasn't doing a review, if I wasn't leaving a long message or emailing, if I didn't personally reassure every single one of my clients, retention suffered for me. You guys may feel that way too. And then you're like, well, I understand all this, Allie. I know that we can do all this, but it's just so hard. There's so many questions. There's so much I have to do all day long. That's when I realized something really critical. If clarity depends on me being available, my business will always break. So manual clarity doesn't scale. And so we have a solution for that. And I'll show you what that solution is. But you don't have to do more work. You can actually do less work and make your experience much stickier. And, often we talk about systems, right? So why systems beat hustle? When clarity lives in systems instead of in your head, everything changes. Systems create that consistency. Consistency creates trust, and trust creates retention. Important because if you're kind of sporadic in how you do things and when you do them, and you get a 30-day update, but they got it on the 32nd day, right? All those things that starts to diminish the trust. So systems are really important to help that consistency and build that trust. And then of course the trust creates that retention. And that's why sticky experiences are not built through effort. They're built through structure. They're built through knowing what the journey is. Systems create trust faster than any conversation that you can have with the person. And what's really cool about it, when you have like a detailed plan that's updating it, showing them their progress to their goal, it's a lot better than words coming out of your mouth, right? So if I were to be working with you, say, and your credit score, you came to me by a home and I'm working on your credit and your credit score improves. And I say, oh yeah, your credit score improved. That's a great conversation. They're good with that. But what if the next month their credit score drops? But I know they're closer to getting a home loan than they were 30 days ago. So I'm trying to tell them that with my words. It is so much different than me trying to tell it with my words, because it's almost like they kind of take it as, oh, she's just trying to tell me something so that I stay with her, but really I'm not better off, right? But when they actually see it on a plan and see it on paper, like here you're closer to your goal and here's why and here's what needs to be, here's what we need to work on this month so we can see that increase in the credit score as well, right? It's very different when they see it on paper. So I'm telling you right now, systems and creating those plans are super important with creating that trust and beating the hustle, right? Okay, so the deliverable system, the system I use to build around all my deliverables, not constant communication. I'm not picking up the phone. If you guys know me, I don't pick up the phone. Clients don't talk to me on the phone. Deliverables will do that heavy lifting. So we have, action plans, monthly updates, really important, goal-based roadmaps, clear priorities, the next steps. These replace the explanations, they reduce emotional labor, and they make the experience more predictable. Deliverables always replace explanations and they work better and they build better trust. And so Level Up Score is the deliverable system that I've created that you guys can use. This will reduce your workload, create more sticky experiences for you, build on your retention. Like I said, it tripled my retention rate, which was amazing because, the hardest thing is getting the client in good journey and you're great at what you do and you just have to figure out how to retain them. It's the easiest thing to do, right? And so again, thinking back as you as consumer, what would you want to see? Right. And I think oftentimes we forget that we are consumers, that we can ask ourselves the same questions that we would want to ask the consumer. So how Level Up Score fits into all this is exactly why I built Level Up Score. It creates those clear action plans. It creates the visible progress, the goal-based direction, the client-facing clarity. Instead of you explaining things over and over and over again, the system actually shows it once and clearly. So the client can look on their action plan and they can see if their score went down, they can see why their score went down, and they'll know what exactly they need to do in order to improve their score, right? And so you don't have to use your words to say that. You don't have to answer the question. Matter of fact, sometimes they're embarrassed to ask you once they see the plan because it's something that they did that they shouldn't have done, right? And so they don't even want to ask you that question because they can clearly see it. So it really does reduce the questions that you have. I always say that if a client has a question, we failed. We failed to answer the question before the question was asked. So how do we create a system and a process for the client that alleviates the questions? So if you're bogged down with client questions all day long and emails and phone calls or whatever you're doing, think about that for a second. The question means something in the journey is broken. Okay, especially if the question something's asked over and over and over again, you need to come back to your system. What experience so that my client doesn't have the question. So again, I always use the phrase, if a answer the question before the client has a question. Okay, and this is where interviewing clients is really helpful in building out this. So if you want to start and triple your retention, here's the shift. Stop trying to convince clients to stay. Start building experience that makes staying easy. You can join the live demo that Level Up Score has. Something's wrong with my images here, so I apologize, but you can come on to join the Level Up Score demo call. We do that demo every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time and every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I would love for you to join and check it out for yourself. See how this might impact your business, help you retain more clients like it has mine. Less work, more value. I appreciate you guys today. Thank you so much for being at Tuesday's Top Tips. I will see you next week. And next week, I'm going to talk about why your clients aren't taking action and how to fix that. Think about that for a second. How many times have you had clients and you're like, here's the things we need to do, and then the client doesn't do the things, and then you're later to blame that you didn't help them get to their goal? So that's what we're going to talk about next week on Tuesday's top tip is how do we fix the problem of clients taking action? What do we need to do to make that happen so they will take the action, so they do get the success, so you get the good Google review, they get a great experience, and they get to their goal, which is ultimately our job and why we're here today. I appreciate you, success bosses. Have a beautiful day. Happy Tuesday, and I will talk to you soon.